Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of that book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional state into part of the infallible guidance system that we've all been gifted. You can also download the actual worksheet itself. It's a simple PDF file. Download it, print it off, and use it as often as you'd like. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process or given powerful testimonials about how the actual application of the process has benefited them, and or asked probing questions about how something so seemingly innocuous can have such power in their lives. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do that soon and often, because that often leads to questions, comments, and testimonials. And if you do have any of those to share with us, give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1. That will put a little question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. Also this year we are doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons. Today is the 306th day of the year, and that leads us to the lesson which reads, The gift of Christ is all I seek today. What but the vision of the Christ mind could I want to use today? It can offer me a day in which I see a world so like to heaven that an ancient memory returns to me. Today I can forget the world that I made. Today I can go past all fear and be restored to love and holiness and peace. Today I am redeemed and born anew into the world of mercy and care, that world of loving kindness and the peace of the Creator. And so, Creator, we return to you, remembering we never went away, remembering your holy gifts to us. In gratitude and thankfulness we come with empty hands and open hearts, asking but that you give what you give. We cannot make an offering sufficient for your offspring, but in your love, the gift of your offspring is his. And the Course in Miracles experiment book by Pam Grout lists as her 306th lesson the title, We Believe the Fairy Tale is True. She quotes Robert Anton Wilson as saying, the more you look for synchronicity, the more magical your life becomes. You are the magician that makes the grass green. Pam writes, the ego is like the annoying tall person who sits in front of you at a theater or in a baseball game. Until it showed up, you had a perfectly clear view. It was a cinch to see the light, the brilliance, the vision that Lesson 306 promises. But once that darned ego showed up, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, carrying a monstrous bucket of popcorn, and completely blocking your view, your vision morphed into the Wes Craven horror flick. Today, I happily skip out of the theater where transcendence is the only thing I could ever see. The gift of the Christ mind is all I seek today, and that vision offers me a day in which I see a world so like to heaven that an ancient memory returns to me. So, that's our Course in Miracles workbook lesson and the Course in Miracles experiment commentary from Pam Grout for today. And as usual, we've got about 50 minutes to entertain your comments and questions and or hear your testimonials or suggestions for a topic. 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. How can we support you today? What's on your mind? It's been quite the powerful and productive day in terms of my therapy sessions and my own personal life, and I'm curious as to what's been going on in your life. What's happening? We were talking yesterday about more of the 15 commitments of conscious relationship or conscious leadership. And we were talking about the shift in desire and lack to the commitment of experiencing that I have enough of everything, including approval, control, and security. The big stretch in today's lesson from the 15 commitments is, I commit to seeing all people and circumstances as allies that are perfectly suited to help me learn the most important things for my growth. That's the way a conscious leader would look at every event, every person, every interaction that he or she has throughout the day. The unconscious commitment, or the commitment below the line in this terminology, is that I commit to seeing other people and circumstances as obstacles and impediments and competition to getting what I most want. So, oddly enough, most of us have been raised to approach this commitment from the unconscious perspective. Most of us have been raised to think in terms of everyone is out to get us, we are powerless, everything that happens that we don't like is somehow an obstacle to us getting what we need in life. And it can be quite the challenge to recognize that, as we talk about so often in this work, everything that I experience is a product of my own choice and where I'm focusing my attention and how I choose to interpret and respond to the events of life. It's not, as we are so often led to believe, that the world is out to get me and that things are here to torture me or abuse me or give me pain. And the challenge in this kind of work is to move whatever perspective you want to take more and more towards the kind of thing that Michael Singer in his work with his book, The Surrender Experiment, and his book, The Untethered Soul, draws us to the ability to just watch the flow of life as though we are watching a movie or a play or a symphony, and just enjoy the experience. Allow the energies to move through us, and marvel at our heart's ability to produce such intense emotions, etc. And this commitment of experiencing the world as an ally, committing to see all people and circumstances as allies that are perfectly suited to help me learn the most important things for my growth, reminds me of the way Guy Finley talks about this as saying, the lessons we need to learn in life ride into our lives on the back of events we don't want. Right? Because most of us don't want to grow. Most of us want things to be comfortable, ourselves to be comfortable, life to flow the way our mind or our ego would say it should be flowing. So, what's the difference between somebody who is reactive versus being conscious and actively interacting with this? They talk about how the way leaders view people and circumstances actually dictates whether they are reactive or conscious. The reactive person or leader thinks things are happening to them. And the conscious person understands they can shift their perspective and think of everything as happening for them, either to challenge them to grow in the way they need to grow to get to the next level, or to have hidden benefits and blessings that they can't see at the conscious, logical level. They talk about how the wiring of our brain contributes to this view that we have about either things are with me or against me approach to life. And one of the first things we learn to do in our growth as infants is to learn to categorize things. We ask children to sort buttons and separate the red ones from the blue ones, to separate shapes. And we teach them that it's critical to get it right and to label things accurately and to differentiate one from another in order to navigate through the world. And that same skill becomes a disservice to leaders when the judgments and categories get simplistic, entrenched, and comparative. People are either with me or against me. They're either better than me or less than me. And I'll find the evidence to prove whatever premise I start with. And it proves, it really drains a lot of energy from us to constantly prove that we're either better or worse than somebody. And what they recommend here is that conscious leaders are able to shift out of the state of comparison and competition to see everyone, including themselves, as equally valuable. Everyone is an ally in the bigger game of learning. So here's their definition for an ally. Traditionally, allies are associated with one another for some common cause or goal. For instance, we might unite in a war against a common enemy. For our purpose, the common cause or goal we have with our allies is our individual learning and growth. Other people don't have to consciously commit to being your ally. If you are committed to experiencing them that way, they are always instrumental to your growth. People that you feel irritated around, people that you judge as less than you, people that you judge as greater than you, people that you experience as being attacking of you, people that you experience as being yes men and praising you and feigning praise. All of it can be used by the conscious leader, reframed into a growth opportunity. Sometimes you can select that kind of a relationship with a coach, a forum group, or an advisory board. However, In this book, they encourage you to go even further. Consider that everyone you interact with, in one way or another, brings an opportunity for you to discover an aspect of yourself that you could not have seen without them, even the most adversarial interactions. In fact, they say here, especially adversarial interactions with individuals. These can help you grow or become aligned with what you most want to create and what you most need to learn about yourself in order to create what you want to create. Every circumstance can help you uncover something new about your beliefs, your behaviors, and your desires. Every person or situation can be seen through the filter of, this is happening for me. And it's happening to serve my learning and growth. It's happening to nudge me out of my comfort zone into the growth zone. Again, if the universe is benevolent, always organizing for the highest good, then other people are part of this collective support for your personal growth. If you choose to show up in the world this way, you can welcome everyone and everything as an ally. This means that the person on the other side of the negotiating table is a catalyst for learning about what you value and where you may have been overreaching. The inability of someone on the other team to deliver his or her agreements offers valuable insight on your management skills or stubbornness to make a change earlier. No matter what the situation, rather than wallowing in resistance, you can get curious and ultimately feel gratitude for whatever prompted you to wake up, deepen your consciousness, and grow as a leader. So, here's an example of the commitment in action. Daphne Scott is a regional manager at Athletico. This is a leading healthcare organization. Early in her career, she participated in many regional meetings. At the end of one of the meeting days, she received a devastating email from a top leader in the company. It said, quote, "Everyone is noticing your constant comments. People are even betting on how many times you'll speak," close quote. As the email continued to describe her behaviors, Daphne broke down sobbing. It was the most painful thing anyone had ever said to her. She believed the email tore her down and that the author was thinking only of himself. She also thought he was trying to block her from progressing in the career that she loved. She thought he was mean and didn't value her intelligence. Now, Daphne noticed her thoughts and then recommitted to conscious leadership. She took some time to get grounded, and then she called the leader who had sent the email to ask for a meeting. She changed the focus and chose to see this leader as an ally, regardless of what his behavior sounded like to her in that email. She shifted her perspective to believe that he sent the email because he cared about her. And when they met, he did express his desire to help her. He shared with her that he wanted her to be a leader in the organization and that her meeting etiquette was keeping her from reaching her potential. While his comments might not have been phrased the way she preferred, he was helping her learn important things for her growth, both inside and outside of her company. And they highlight here in the book, other people don't even have to consciously commit to being your ally. If you are committed to experiencing them that way, you can turn it into instrumental tools for your own growth. So, this brings me back to the idea that the commitment here is aligned, in my mind, perfectly with the reality management worksheet. And in the reality management worksheet, it says over and over again, in various presentations Dr. Rice makes and in the worksheet itself, if I'm in pain, my thinking is in error. If somebody sends me an email that I say is a nasty attack, and I create frustration and fear and sadness and hurt and insult, I take offense at it, I'm the one that created that offense. Even if the email was intended to be nasty, I'm still the one who creates the offense, because it is entirely possible for me to read an email sent by somebody who intends to rip me to shreds and insult me and attack me, and have me look at it and kind of chuckle at the absurdity and at the fact that anybody who would write an email like that, intentionally negative, is just demonstrating their own pain, fear, or sadness. The email really isn't about me. So if I generate upset in response to an email, the Reality Management Worksheet tells me if I'm in pain, my thinking is in error. And when my thinking says, boy, that person's really got a problem, the worksheet reminds me, well, wait a minute, if they're the one with the problem, how come I'm the one with the pain, fear, sadness, upset, guilt, shame, blame, rage, etc.? It isn't specifically talked about in the Reality Management Worksheet, but what this worksheet does is almost exactly the reframing that they're suggesting in this commitment from the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. This commitment number 13, to see everyone as an ally, everyone in every situation as an ally, that's exactly what happens when I apply a worksheet process to anything that's going on in me when it results in a negative emotional state. I'm going to ask to be shown a different way to see the very same situation. And that happens in the step where I cancel the goal and ask to be shown the hidden part of my own mind and remove the parts that generate denial and all the negative emotions. That's the same thing to my eye and ear as reframing and choosing to see the situation as an ally. And I've had a number of times, we've talked about them in these shows, it's recorded in the archives a variety of times that I've done worksheets and shared them, and people who have called in and done worksheets, and you can see, you can hear the shift in energy and the shift in perspective and the interpretations that change when people step through the worksheet process and cancel the need to be right. The biggest block to healing for any of us is our desire to be right, is this craving to be right, is this, Michael has it here, is the need to be right. And oddly enough, my desire to be right, when there is any negative emotional state arising in me, is the blockage to seeing the truth of what is. Course in Miracles tells us you must understand the distorting power of the way you want things to be. Another line in Course in Miracles says, you may wonder why you need to look upon your deepest hatreds and angers. And the reason is because you need to see what you're doing with your mind energy, with the focus of your conscious logical thought, that's actually creating the very thing you say you don't want to have. And unless I can cancel that process, unless I can cancel my own thought process and holding on to being right, and the way the mind works is it will generate the evidence to show me I'm right. It'll show me whatever evidence I tell it to show me. And unless I cancel that process, I can't get free of it. I do have the ability to choose the focus of my conscious awareness in each new present moment, and whether I like it or not, it is the focus of my conscious awareness in each new present moment that creates my experience of life. My experience of life is not created by what other people do or don't do. It is not created by the weather. It is not created by my bank account. It is not created by what other people think of me. is not created by other people's actions toward me or refusal to act toward me. My experience of life is created by the focus, the choice I make about where and how to focus my conscious awareness in each moment. And that's, in the bottom line observations, I have one that says, what happens to me and around me in my life is nowhere near as important as how I choose to interpret and respond to those events. So we are called in this work to monitor as closely as we can manage our own internal emotional state, because that is our guidance system. It is far more useful in terms of deciding where I'm on target or off target than my conscious logical thought, because my conscious logical thought is going to be driven by goals I hold in the way I want things to be. And if I want things to be a certain way and I'm not willing to cancel those things, if I want things to be in a certain way and I'm upset, if I keep pursuing what I want when there's a negative emotional state in my mind, in my energy system, I'm ignoring the built-in alarm system that comes with this mind-body energy unit, this awareness, and I'm creating the very thing I say I want to get rid of. And I don't know too many other ways to talk about things being really dysfunctional than for me to be creating something that I don't like and then complain about the very thing I'm creating. That's pretty dysfunctional. So we've got about 30 minutes left, plenty of time for comments and commentary, questions, answers. The call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. How can we support you today? What is it about this extended intro today that makes sense or doesn't make sense? Today's Tuesday, so we will have a support group tonight. All the information about joining us, absolutely free on the support group if you're so inclined, is available at mindshiftersacademy.org website. And we encourage you to join us at 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central, and or pass that information along to somebody that you think might be interested, because it's free if you have internet access, and we'll do an hour of some kind of a presentation or discussion in the group, and then have time for worksheets or commentary. And it's always a good time. It's always useful and supportive of people in doing their work and learning more about what it would take for them to move their work to the next level. And we encourage you to join us. Again, that's all that information is available at mindshiftersacademy.org website. And I should mention, because it's tripped a few people up, there's a separate login information for Tuesday and Thursday. You need the right login code to join us. And let us know what's on your mind today. How can we spend the next 28 minutes that would be of benefit to you? The summary in this chapter we were reading on this choosing to see others as an ally, and everything that happens is conscious leaders look at life through the perspective of learning and growth. They wonder about how everyone and everything, especially challenges and potential obstacles, are actually allies to their own development and growth. And the chapter summary is, conscious leaders commit to seeing all people and circumstances as allies in their growth. Unconscious and reactive leaders choose to view other people and circumstances as obstacles to getting what they want. Most leaders start with this reactive mindset. They're convinced that they will feel happy once they get what they want, and if they can't get what they want, it's because others are standing in their way. Rather than seeing all people as allies, unconscious leaders think either or. People are either with me or against me. This does not mean that competition doesn't exist, but that even competitors can be supportive catalysts for my own growth, and that my adversaries can be extraordinarily beneficial to me. I can choose to view challenges as a way to create positive pressure, often that is needed from me to expand beyond the comfort zone and into a higher level of performance and achievement. Conscious leaders are able to shift out of the state of comparison to see everyone and everything as equally valuable. This is that would take shifting into living in the question, as Rilke would call us to. This would require us to ask to be shown, where our conscious logical mind is showing us things to be irritated about and upset about, and to feel competition and a roadblock, as this would call us to questioning and living in that curiosity, which is one of the earlier commitments. Conscious leaders are able to shift out of competition and comparison mode and ask how to see everyone and everything as equally valuable. And this perspective recognizes that all people and circumstances can be viewed as an asset to my learning and growth. And once I do that, it's kind of a springboard into the next commitment, which is creating a win-win for all situations. That next one, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, is I commit to creating win-win situations. A win for me, win for the other person, a win for the organization, a win for the whole. The whole view that I can summon of whatever's going on. Whatever issues, problems, concerns, or opportunities that life brings me, I'm committing to turn it into a win-win situation. And that's going to be a challenge at times. That's going to stretch me to grow. That's going to require that I cancel some of the goals I have loaded that will give me a myopic view of the world. So that's what's up for tomorrow, and we have another 23 or 4 minutes left today. 563-999-3581. How can we support you today? What's on your mind? What would you like to do with our last 20 few minutes? We have somebody was asking about this yesterday. We had a board meeting for the Journey's Dream, and Journey's Dream was co-sponsored with Mensa Medical for the October 10th, 8th, 9th, and 10th Integrative Mental Health Summit. And the Integrative Mental Health Summit.org, integrativementalhealthsummit.org is the website to go to. And you can still purchase the access to those video files and the audio of, I think they said they had 43 different speakers and 20-some different presentations. They had several panels and group discussions, so there were more speakers than there are separate talks. But the recordings are available, and if you pay I think at this point it's $150. If you pay $150, you can get access to all 20-some videos and have access to them for the whole year, for the next coming year. And to get access to that, you go to integrativementalhealthsummit.org and follow the links and put in your information. You can get access to those video files, and what's in those video files, a variety of different approaches to problems that conventional medical and psychiatric treatment would simply be take this medication and don't ask questions. Just, stay in the hospital or stay in the hospital until your insurance runs out, and then take this medication for as long as we tell you to, which is usually indefinitely. And what the Integrative Mental Health Summit really wanted to do is put out there a variety of creative and very effective ways to deal with mental, emotional, and physical health problems from a holistic or an integrative or a functional medicine approach. So there were these two powerfully intelligent women talking about different approaches to helping people with autism. There was Dr. Walsh talking about nutritional components of and imbalances that relate to almost every level of psychiatric and psychological problem or symptom that they see. There were people talking about using technology to help monitor and improve mental health issues. There were people who did panel discussions on healing trauma with things other than medication. There were people there talking about what it takes to have good sleep, and some experts discussing that. So many different aspects of mental and emotional health were discussed by thought leaders in the field, and that's all available at Integrative Mental Health Summit, all one word, .org. So if you have questions about that summit, if you have questions about anything we've talked about in the past 10 and a half years, pushing 11, I guess, here, since we started in 2011, and we're pushing towards 2022 here, give us a call, 563-999-3581. There are all kinds of presentations about helping people with substance abuse and doing that from a holistic perspective. There was a wonderful talk by Melissa Bernstein, co-founder of the toy company Melissa and Doug. And these are a lot of people, various people were speaking from the perspective of having been a consumer of mental health services themselves, and or if it's the women who had talks about autism, both of them had helped their own offspring through those challenges. And there's a gentleman, a psychologist out of California, who is helping people learn how to do EMDR by and for themselves. And his presentation, I believe his name was Dr. Passaro, Perry Passaro, Passaro, is part of what you get if you buy the package. And you learn how to focus. He actually steps people through using it to shift their experience of a past trauma right there in the talk. And there were nutritional consultants and experts. There were people who are experts in using yoga to treat trauma. There were several different integrative psychiatrists, Dr. Leela Masumi and Dr. Phyllis Hefner. Brad Yates with EFT tapping is part of that package. Dr. Nishi Bhopal is one of the thought leaders about sleep, how to restore good sleep, how the benefits of sleep in your life. So, Dr. George Lindenfeld was there talking about trauma, and he uses the BAUD, bioacoustical utilization device, to treat people with trauma. He does his own specific trauma technique. Dr. David Grand, who developed brain spotting, was on the trauma panel. Winfred Dorr, who created a fabulous program to help your brain develop, to help people with learning disabilities and reading conditions and focus and concentration problems. So, a lot of good stuff available at integrativementalhealthsummit.org, and there is a fee. It's $150 to buy the videos for access to them for a year, and it goes for a really good cause. It's two nonprofits that got together, and so far they've spent their own money on this, and they haven't. It's seeing as though it's only the first year that they've done this thing on a virtual program. It's the $150 you spend helps defray the cost of them getting all of these thought leaders together and putting on that program. So we've got about 15 minutes left, and time for a comment or a question or a clarification or a refutation. 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1, and we can have a conversation. What's on your mind? How would it be of use to you to spend this next 14 or 15 minutes? I have in my hand the tool that is recommended by Dr. David Grand in his technique, brain spotting. And he's an individual who was actively doing therapy with EMDR, that's called eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And in the middle of one of his sessions, where they had trained people originally to have the client move their eyes left and right rapidly back and forth while they're focusing on various aspects of a trauma. And in the middle of one of those sessions, Dr. Grand realized that as he moved his finger, the patient's eyes started to just shake and quiver and blink. And so he, unlike everything he'd been trained to do in EMDR, he felt like some inspiration was to just freeze his hand right on the spot where, when that patient was looking at his fingertip, their eyes were going into some kind of a spasm. And he just held it there, and the patient went through this series of releases that were remarkable, and that was the beginning of his understanding that rather than just moving the eyes back and forth left to right, which is powerful, it works very well for a lot of people. There's all kinds of different forms of alternating bilateral stimulation that work, whether it's sounds or vibrating paddles or tapping that works. But what he found was there's another thing that can happen. And when your eyes are focused at a specific point, it's stimulating a part of your brain, and you can get access to the energies that you downloaded during a time of a trauma. And you can get access to insight and energy release that he had never experienced before. So he began, being a creative soul, he began experimenting with that, and it's what gave rise to the therapy technique known as brain spotting, which now has thousands of clinicians trained in it and is available in a variety of different countries because people find it so effective, either as an adjunct to other therapies or some people just use it specifically. But as he talks about it in the book, it's intended to be just a tool you can use with your knowledge of trauma and your theory of how people manage their thoughts and emotions and physical energies. And so in the hands of a well-trained therapist and or a specifically trained trauma therapist, it's yet another powerful tool. And you can hear more about that if you listen to Dr. David Grand, and he was on the trauma panel with me and 2 other people on the Integrative Mental Health Summit. And I think that happened on Saturday the 9th. So, lots of good stuff and a very good cause as Journey's Dream and Mensa Medical continue to push to try and help rewrite the narrative on mental health, to create a narrative in which optimal health and well-being is possible and expected. And Mensa Medical does that work through targeted nutrient therapy, orthomolecular nutrition. And Journey's Dream does that through promoting what they're calling the Optimal Being Program, which was designed on Dr. Michael Rice's work and the Mind Shifter tool and the Reality Management Worksheet and a host of other tools that Dr. Rice created, and many of them available absolutely free at whyagain.org. And as always, we encourage people to go there soon and often, download the worksheet, do your own journaling, the targeted journaling that's available through the Mind Shifter tool, do the 3 Early Memories of Conflict worksheet, do the Codependence to Interdependence worksheet, and watch how you can learn about the parts of your own mind that you've been running and hiding from, and how that can free you up to move out of the negative emotional states that your mind wants to blame on other people and other things, and move into an experience of compassion, joy, creativity, aliveness, and awareness of your conscious awareness of your true nature as love. Through the application of these tools, through the application of willingness, I often talk to people about how willingness is the essential ingredient. Michael Rice calls it the cosmic grease. And if I am willing to see what some part of my mind has been hiding from my conscious mind, especially when I have a negative emotion active in my system, I can move through the stuck points. I can move through the self-sabotage that I wasn't even aware I was doing. I had a patient on Friday say that she knows that she self-sabotages. And I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, I know that I procrastinate and it's self-sabotage. And I know exactly why I do it. And I had to offer her the perspective that if she knew exactly why she did it, one of two things would happen almost immediately. The first is the first possibility is that she would relabel it as a powerful, useful coping mechanism, not label it as self-sabotage or procrastination. And the second possibility is that if she saw exactly why she did it, she would see what she is trying to accomplish with that mechanism, and she would instantly be able to meet that need for herself in a more productive and socially acceptable way. And so since she continues to procrastinate, doesn't like the results, and labels it self-sabotage, I was able to help her understand that she doesn't yet understand anything about why she is doing the self-sabotage or the procrastination. Because when I clearly see why I do what I do, if it is unproductive, it falls away. If I get to see that it's productive in a way I wasn't able to see prior to doing that work, prior to this revelation, then I relabel it as something that was highly beneficial. I'm reading the book by Ronald Bassman, who's a psychologist who, at the time when he was 23 years old or whatever, he had a psychotic episode. They threw him in a hospital. And they did what they do to so many people out of their misunderstanding, and they drugged him. They drugged him heavily. And his mind, he was very bright, as evidenced by the fact that he lived through all of that, and now here he is writing a book. He's become a psychologist, and he writes about being on both sides of the locked door. But his very bright mind, when he was 23 years old, would not let him give in to this demand that he comply and just dumb himself down and not let people know about what his insights and intuitions were and how he was having visions and what he could understand about other people. He was what they would call pathologically stubborn. And so, there were a couple parts of the book that I've dog-eared the pages so I can go back when I interview him next week, because he talks about how his stubbornness is literally what got him drugged into submission and eventually given, I forget how many, but I think he had 40 different insulin coma shock treatments, which, you can die from, but back then it was what they thought was the most productive way to help people who were resistant to healing or change. And so they would literally strap them down in a bed and give them a muscle relaxer and then load them up with insulin to put them in a coma. And just for good measure, while they were there, they would give them electroconvulsive therapy on their brain at the same time. And his determination to talk about what he thought was right and to not give in to their telling him just be quiet and go along and get through the program, they were labeling that as a problem. At some point, he even labeled it as a problem. However, that strength of character, that intellectual intelligence that he had, I'm pretty sure even today he would finally say, that's how I kept my sanity. That's how I didn't become a completely broken human being. And yet, many people who were looking at that, including his family, including every single person who worked at the hospital, would say, this is a problem. This is part of his pathology, that he won't give in. that he won't comply, that he won't go along. Well, he was able to reach a perspective where he saw eventually that was the seeds of and what flowered into his sanity after they were done shocking his brain with insulin and electricity and drugging him to near comatose levels with other drugs. So when we understand everything about what we're doing, one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to see that we can meet those needs or desires in a different, less disruptive way, perhaps more socially acceptable, perhaps even more personally beneficial to us. That's one option. The other option will be we'll be able to say, oh, this isn't really a problem. This is how I'm avoiding something even worse. This is one of the best coping mechanisms I've developed. And so when we deeply, completely understand what we do, we'll understand why we're doing what we're doing, and we'll be given better options, different options, right from our own resources, or we'll relabel the thing that, in the case of the person I was talking about on Friday, rather than labeling it self-sabotage and procrastination, she'll label it as her way of dealing with an abusive situation or a very difficult life situation. So that's my offering for today. We're down to our last couple of minutes. We'll be back again Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. I hope you join us. Hope you find this useful. Hope you've got some comments or questions. It always makes it easier for us to live into our intention with this work. Again, our intention with this work and the offering of the Internet show is to be of service. So please feel free to call Michael and Jeannie at 563-999-3581. They will be starting the second hour of the show in a couple of minutes, and let them know how they can support you. In the meantime, I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I will hope that Jeannie Rice is available. I will turn on her microphone. Welcome, Jeannie Rice.
Yeah, it would help if I unmuted, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, have a wonderful show.
Thank you.